everybody, welcome. Thank you for joining me today for another Tuesdays with Grace. Today I'm really excited to show you how to quilt a large quilt. You can see I've got an extremely large quilt using your Cutie Frame and a domestic machine. Now I'm excited about this process because it's been a little while since I've jumped in and really quilted a quilt using domestic machine and a hoop style frame. Way back when we came up with the idea of making a hoop style frame so that you could fit it into your home and quilt a larger size quilt, I had to do the beta testing. And I learned so many things, and I was beta testing to prove the theory that you actually could quilt a large size quilt on a hoop style frame. And that's why we came up with it. Now, our first version was for Brother Sewing Company. We made them a version of the first hoop style frame where they could take their domestic machines and put it in somebody's home, and you could add automation to it. So the sky's the limit. You just don't have to dedicate a huge area or space to quilting. You can do it within your limitations. So when I started quilting, I have a very small house and it's filled to the brim with quilting items. However, I had kids at home and I wasn't able to have a dedicated space for quilting, so I started out on a hoop style frame, and it allowed me to go home, do my therapy, relax, and enjoy the whole quilting process without feeling rushed. And so, you know, there are some real advantages to the hoop style frame. I'm not going to say that there are any disadvantages, because how you quilt is what is really important. It's just different. It's not any harder or any easier than a rolling style frame. It's just different, and it's a different process. I will say it's a little bit different of a process for quilting. So let me jump in and tell you how I prepared and put my quilt onto the frame. Notice that I'm using our little Cutie tabletop fabric frame. I'm going to call it not a frame today. I'm going to call it my accessory or my fabric manager, because it's managing my fabric and going to allow me to move the machine across the quilt for me to be able to create my beautiful designs. It's much easier for me rather than pushing the quilt through the throat of the machine. Now it's on a carriage with fabulous wheels, and it's making it easier for me to move across the quilt without the headache or the shoulder aches or the back aches or even your foot and hand aches that you're going to get from push-through quilting. So let's talk about how I got my quilt sandwich ready to go. So I laid out my top first, and I put my top on my batting. I folded it up, and then I unfolded the batting and got all my wrinkles out. So that was number one. So I did that, and then I laid my backing out on the ground because I don't have an area or a table to bring it up off of the floor, and this was just easier for me. So use your king size or queen size beds to lay your quilts out on using your leaders, and I am using the leaders. Now if I wasn't, I would have to make my backing that much wider and that much longer, okay? So I'm using the leaders to give me that little extra because my backing is kind of limited. You can see that I pieced it because I kept running out of fabric. So I didn't have enough to make it really, really wide to allow for the backing to act as my leader, to give me that little extra that I needed. So I am using the leader cross. And some of you might say, well, it's got that cording, it's really hard to use. Well, the reason it has the cording is so it starts to make it more even as you roll. This is kind of what we call the soft rail, like on a rolling frame. And so as you roll it, it makes your tension a little more even, and it makes it roll a little more even from top to bottom. Now I have my quilt on lengthwise rather than widthwise. When a hoop style frame, you could quilt any direction. So you could put it on lengthwise or you could put it on widthwise. It just depends on how quickly you want to move across, if you want more sections moving across or moving down this way. So I sandwiched all my pieces together. I folded it up. You can see it's all nicely folded. I brought it over to the frame and I slid it underneath the throat of the machine, underneath the foot. Now I've positioned it so that it's just right there to the edge. So I'm only going to have so much area to quilt. So with me using my foot pedal for my quilting, I'm going to have to make sure that I don't hit the back of the machine or the sides of the frame. So I'm going to mark my area. And this is what I'm going to use, is my painter's tape. And if you don't have stitch regulator with the edge warning, this is what you have to do, because it gets that was the one thing that I found very frustrating when I was beta testing the hoop style frame. I was used to using the longer arm machines and having a larger quilting area. And so the limitations of the smaller throat, I kept hitting the back. And so I learned that by marking my quilting area, it saved me the headache of hitting the sides or the back of the machine. So that's what we're going to do right now. So I'm going to lift the needle up. And you can see that this isn't level. So it's nice to have it on a level table, but I'm working with what I've got right now. And you can tell my tails are really long. So I'm just going to cut them off. All right. So let me just put that right there on the side. Okay, so I already know that I've positioned my quilt right back here, so it's not, my machine will not hit the back or these little quilt clips that are clamping it together. Okay, that's really important, because if you were creating a design and you were moving up in this area and you had it clamped, then you would hit the quilt clips and it also messes up your design. So we're positioning it down low enough, but that we can at least clear this little border here. Now, when you're creating quilts, also remember that you need to create the quilts to work within the parameters of your machine for your designs. So if this, rather than me breaking this border up, if it was one large blue border rather than having the 3 different sections, then that would be really hard, and that would be my limitations of my machine. So notice, as me moving down, I could barely just make it, and that will be as if I'm putting it on nice and straight. So I will want to work within my area. So making your borders a little smaller to fit within the throat of your machine will allow you to create different designs, and you won't be limited to using the same designs over and over and over again, because they fit within the area of your quilt. So just little things to think about as you're creating those beautiful tops, and until you can get into a longer arm machine, it's not that hard to just break it up and add another little border to it. It's you and how you quilt. Okay, so that's my limitation there. Let me pull it forward, okay? And so right here, where the needle is, I'm going to put it down in, and I'm going to put the foot down, so it's right there. That is where I'm going to mark, but I'm not going to mark in front of the foot. I'm going to mark behind the foot, because I want to give myself some allowance before I hit that area. So I would just kind of put it right here on this needle. So these are my limitations. And I'm just going to mark it all the way across. And I have positioned it, and I'm just kind of guesstimating, because I'm going to be able to at least quilt these 2 borders down here and across. So that will also allow me to turn the corner on this, because I made my border a little smaller. So now, let me move my stuff. and then I'll talk about my pre-quilting checklist. All right, so now I want to lift my needle up, and I'm going to move across, okay, my quilt, and I'm going to move all the way over to the side. And I'm barely making it over here to this little square that's in the border, but that's where I'm going to mark. I'm going to mark on the inside of the foot. So, yeah, just like that. So right here is my quilting area, and you can use this painter's tape a couple of times, and then all of a sudden it's not going to be usable anymore, but that's okay. And then you can just pull it off and throw it out. It also helps get all the little fuzzies from the batting out. So another useful thing that the painter's tape will do. All right, so there I have marked my area. I don't have to mark this side yet. Now, if my quilt was all the way over, I would want to move my machine all the way over here and then mark right here so that I wouldn't hit the sides. But because I've positioned it right here, we're just gonna go for it. Okay, now let's talk about our pre-quilting checklist, okay? Really important. I'm gonna put the needle down. Okay, before you get started, let's talk about our pre-quilting checklist. Couple of things that you need to remember is get all your tools ready for quilting. That's your extra bobbins, your extra thread if you're changing it, your designs that you're working on, and I have a couple other tools. I have an unpicker. You never know when you're not going to like a design, and so have your unpicker ready. I know I hate to unpick and I don't want to, but I'm just being a good scout and being prepared. All right, that doesn't mean that I'm going to make a mistake. It just means that I'm ready to unpick something that I don't like, and you know, it's better to unpick it before, and then before you're moving all the way across your quilt, and then decide afterwards and unpick a whole section. So pick a smaller section and decide, hey, I'm not really happy with that. Stop what you're doing, unpick it before you all of a sudden quilt a large section of the quilt. Now, confession here. This is one of my UFOs, okay? I've had this quilt top piece for a really, really long time. Probably, I would say, 11 years. I mean, it's a long time. And I started quilting it on another machine. It wasn't one of ours, and I didn't like the way it turned out. But as I was quilting, because I wanted to get it done, I said to myself, I can live with it. Well, I couldn't. So I ended up unpicking all the sections that I started with, and then that's why it's here today, okay? So if you see some extra little threads, it's because I did do some unpicking on it. So as we move across, you might see a few extra threads there. But that's my confession. Like I said, if you don't like it, stop what you're doing and unpick it. Don't move on any further, or just walk away and then come back, look at it with new eyes and see if you like it. I mean, you might be able to live with it, and you might think it's a lot better than it really is. You know, Bryant's an artist. Oh, God, he's a fabulous artist. And I know that there are probably times when he is drawing and he thinks, I can do better. And then he comes back the next day and he looks at it and he thinks, that's not so bad. I did pretty good. So we all need to look at it, take a little break, and come back with fresh eyes when we're not so tense and uptight. All right. So the pre-quilting checklist, make sure you have all your tools and supplies. I have my tape measure, because I'm going to be measuring, and I just want that available so it can help me section off how to make my designs as even as possible. And I'm going to use that extra pens. And I have my rulers here. Now, these probably aren't the right size rulers, but they will really help me as I'm moving across my quilt to help with my designs and make them proportioned. So just make sure that you have what you need, and these will sit down right back here, because on this one, rather than having the top plate and have a little section that I can put items in, I don't. So I'm just going to use my flat table and put my items back there, but you'll have to remind me because you know I get quilting and I forget. So I'm going to put my tape back there. And my marking pencils, I have two. I have my white chalk pencil and I have a regular pencil. I won't be able to see the regular pencil on the dark blue, but I will be able to see the white. So I have both of those. Let's talk about designs now, okay? I'm really excited because I'm actually going to quilt this whole big quilt using the domestic machine or a manual machine. I'm just really excited about this whole process because it's been a while since I've gotten back to my roots and quilting. So let me move my machine off to the side and show you the designs that I came up with. So when you're quilting a larger size quilt, on this quilt here, all right, on this quilt here, you will notice that it has big blocks right here, okay? These big blocks will not fit into the throat of the machine. Okay, let me hold it up, okay? Okay, that's the big block, okay? So what I'm going to do is I could do a couple of things. I can use the pattern of the fabric as my inspiration. I could do lots of little pebbles. I probably won't. I could do stippling in this area. That way I will be able to break it up just a little bit. I could do an edge-to-edge design in the area, or I could section it off into like a little 9-patch. Or a little, not a 9-patch, you could do a 12-patch or whatever works within your area. And then you could do several different little designs and make it fun and unique. So think about your quilt. Each quilt will have its own personality and own style. This is a more geometric quilt, so I'm kind of using swirls and geometric designs. But you think about the personality of your quilt and what you want to see on it, and then start doodling the designs. So let me show you really quick what I was thinking for the border here. All right, I doodled a lot of geometric designs, and there were several that I was thinking about I could use. And I'm going to draw my border here. It's not to scale, okay? Actually, I could. Let me measure it, and it's about 2 1/4. So let's just do this. So I'll do a straight line across. Let me turn my page over, and I'll do a line across, and then I'll come down. That's what I like about our rulers, is with these you have the marking tool, and you can mark in the little sections. So that, and then I want to kind of go halfway up in between, so I just want to do up there. Let me just an 1/8. All right, I'm doing the 1/8. All right, okay. So I did my center line, and that's what I'm going to do on my quilt. That's why I brought the white chalky pencil, so I could make a center line, because I want to have an area as I'm drawing so that I can keep my design even and consistent. So what I thought I would do is I would do these little hearts, okay? So let me see if I can do them, okay? So I'm going to start here. And I'm going to come down like this. I'm going to start right here in this one. And I'm going to come down and around like this. And then I'm going to go back. And then I'm going to come down and around like this. And then I'm going to go back. All right, so that's my one heart. All right, so now I want to continue on. And I don't want to go all the way up to that point. I want to come down. And as I'm starting to come up this one, right now, I want to come up and come around like this, and then come back and up, come around like this, and then back. Okay, now remember what I did is I started coming around like this and coming back and then down like this. And now I'm hitting my ruler, so I'll move it out of the way. All right. All right. And so that's kind of the design I thought would be really fun on the quilt. And then for my corner, I thought we could come and do the same thing, but we want to go up like this on the corner, come down, and then up like this on the, up like this on the corner and come back this way. All right, and then I'll just go around the corner and make it nice and straight. So I'll just do my design this way. So that's a fun, easy little design. It does take practice so you can get it in your head and get those muscle memory going, but it won't be that hard. And try it out. Try something different, try something new. This is your opportunity to really grow as a quilter. And so I could do loops and I could do lines, but I get bored with those. So I want to challenge myself, so this is my little challenge one. So let me come in and let me put my needle up. I can already tell we're going to have a little struggle with our bobbin. Notice that I've got a little thread buildup right there. So I'm going to pull that out. All right, now I'm going to cut it off. And let's tack down our quilt. I haven't tested the tension yet. So that's what I'm going to do with your machine. Let's talk about what accessories you need for your machine to machine quilt. You will need your darning or hopping foot. You will need to make sure that your presser foot gauge, that's the pressure that the presser foot is pushing down onto your quilt layers, is adjusted for quilting and not too tight. And then you want to make sure your feed dogs are down, okay, and not up, because your feed dogs are what feed the fabric through. All right, now I've done that, I'm going to pull it down as far as I can, and I'm going to tack my quilt down. I'm going to use my little buttons that are on my machine to insert my needle and pull it back up and pull it away. It's really important to pull up your threads and to tack down your quilt. I can tell that that pressure on the presser foot is a little tight, but we're going to live with it because this little machine kind of likes it a little tighter. And now we can check to see. And I like to put my fingers just like this to hold my fabric down. And remember, I'm trying to stand and quilt and push on the foot pedal. So I'm going to turn my foot pedal this way so that I don't hit on the cutter. And I'm just going to push down and start tacking it down. And I'm going to keep it within the boundaries of my 1/4 of an inch. All right, now I want to pull my, my handles out. You notice that it was coming down underneath the quilt, and because I'm not sitting down, I couldn't see it. So I'm going to extend my handles so that I have more showing and it's not pushing down under the quilt. So that was one thing that you might need to adjust on your little cutie frame. And there's a little knob right here that I can just pull them out that way. And then I can also adjust it and then just screw the knob back in and it will tighten everything up. There we go. And now it's tight, and now it's accessible for me, and I'm not fighting with the fabric right here. I don't want to fight with it. I don't like to argue with my fabric, and so I'm just going to move it up and then start moving across. Now I went back a little too far, so I'm going to bring it in. All right, now I'm going to start moving across. All right. And notice I'm in control of my stitch length and my speed, okay? So I'm just tacking it down right now. And as I'm quilting, I'm noticing my stitches are a little loose. and I don't like that. So I need to go and see what's going on. Maybe it's just that I'm moving too slow, and I need to speed it up, which I will. But this could be just my basting stitch, and that's why I'm doing it. I'm going to do a little practice stitches here on the side before I get started. Okay, notice I got off there. Okay, and see, because I didn't trim my threads, I'm fighting against, because I've had this a long time, I have a lot of thread buildup or fraying on the quilt top. And notice I'm coming to a needle, a pin. All right. All right. I'm going to just finish it off, go all the way to my tape. There we go. All right, and I hit the end. I'm going to tack that down. I'm going to cut my threads right here. It's one nice thing, they have these cutters. All right, so now I'm going to work and make sure that my tension's okay. I'm going to feel underneath my quilt, and I can feel my stitches. That's one way to make sure that your tension is, and we were playing around with this, so I just need to pull on it and see. And I can tell my tension is really, really loose. Somebody's been playing with it. So I thought this was set up. That's why you test your tension. My tension knob has been all the way over to a 1, and that's not giving me any tension at all. It's okay for tacking down my quilt on the edges, but I want to adjust that. I want to move it lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. So if I was loosening it, I would be turning it towards me. I'm trying to tighten it up, so I'm going to be turning it towards the back of the machine. And usually, we want to go at least a 2 or a 3 to start with and see what that looks like. So I have a little bit of batting right here. I'm going to pull this on. I'm going to pull up my threads, and we're going to check my tension. I'm going to move my foot pedal down here, and I'm going to do my needle up, needle down. All right, my thread's a little short. Not going to worry about it, but now I'm just going to push on it and see if my tension is a little better. And look how much nicer that is. It's not so loose. Oh, such a much prettier stitch. So as I'm moving, okay, so that I can live with. Okay, the next time we come back, I'm going to show you how to draw the design on and get started quilting. For that, I'm going to sit down and quilt. We're going to start out with the foot pedal, then I'm going to move to stitch regulation. But it's all going to be done on the domestic machine. So I'm very excited about this little quilting journey, and I hope you join me throughout this process and really jump in and get to know your frame, your machine, and how you quilt. That's why we invented the hoop style frame, to free you up to do what you love to do. So join me next time, and we'll get started and jump in and begin quilting. I'll see ya. Bye-bye.